CTV family. Catch us live on your TV screens.
Oh yes, catch us live on your TV screens every single Monday to Friday from 4 until 5 p.m. Today is hashtag Talk Thursday. We are talking about everything that has to do with bodily autonomy and integrity. And part of that is owning your body. So I really want to know, how do you guys own your body back at home? As you're sitting and you're watching this episode, how do you own your body? Let us know on all of our social media platforms. Facebook, Instagram, and of course, Twitter. You can please make sure you send those to us. But for now, let's get into a clip to show us what body autonomy and integrity actually is.
Hi Tatenda, what have you been up to?
Hello Salam. I have been working on a training manual for ARASA to help organizations, human rights defenders, and communities understand bodily autonomy in the context of sexual and reproductive health and rights.
That sounds interesting. What is bodily autonomy, Tatenda?
Bodily autonomy is the freedom to make your own decisions in relation to your body. It is the right to exercise agency over your body, free from external interference, social or legal sanctions, violence, and discrimination.
That sounds a bit complex. Can you tell me more?
Of course. Bodily autonomy is about agency. Think about the choice and freedom to decide whether or not to have children, with whom, and how many children to have.
Aha! More like how people can make decisions about their gender expression and identities and about their sexuality, including when, whether, with whom, and how to have sex and to feel pleasure.
That's correct, Salam. Bodily autonomy is the freedom to make decisions about your sexual and reproductive health too.
Isn't that the same thing as bodily integrity? I've heard people use bodily integrity too.
Good question. Bodily autonomy and bodily integrity are often used together, but they are different in meaning. Bodily integrity is the right to not have your body touched or physically interfered with without your consent. It is your right to security, your freedom from any form of violence. It also includes freedom from any humiliating treatment and the right to privacy. It refers to the right to be free from physical assaults, rape, violence, torture, medical or other experimentation, compelled eugenic or social sterilization, cruel or degrading treatment or punishment, forced HIV testing, sex assigning surgery for intersex children.
Right! Now I understand what both mean. But how do I know when my right to bodily autonomy is being violated?
It is when you are denied access to contraceptives and safe abortions. It also includes laws that criminalize same-sex relationships and any restrictions placed on your reproductive health.
What about bodily integrity? What are some of the violations that come with it?
Female genital mutilation, forced sterilization, sex assigning surgery for intersex infants. Back in 2013 in Namibia, the International Community of Women Living with HIV, Namibia Women's Health Network, and the Legal Assistance Center found a number of women living with HIV who were sterilized without their knowledge or informed consent. The women received limited or inaccurate information about sterilization, why it was important, and what options they had. They were not given counseling and were rushed to sign the documents, some while they were in labor. Some were even told it was standard practice for women with HIV.
No, but that is so wrong on so many levels. That must have been awful for the women in Namibia. This is a serious case of human rights violations.
Oh yes, forced sterilization is the violation of both bodily autonomy and bodily integrity, as it both negates women's ability to make decisions about their own bodies and also constitutes a physical interference with their bodies without their consent. It was, and it continues to be in other parts of the world. The enjoyment of bodily autonomy and bodily integrity is critical to the realization of the full range of human rights. Our bodies are the primary means through which we experience and participate in society. Without full control over our bodies, the full range of human rights for marginalized groups such as young women, sex workers, LGBTI, and people living with disabilities would not be enjoyed. Bodily autonomy and bodily integrity are at the core of our human rights. These include the rights to life, privacy, dignity, expression, health, security of the person, freedom from torture and other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment, and freedom from discrimination.
This makes a lot of sense. But how does this connect to sexual and reproductive health rights, or SRHR?
Bodily autonomy and bodily integrity are at the cornerstones of sexual and reproductive health and rights. But first, let us start by explaining a little bit about what we mean by sexual and reproductive health.
Sexual and reproductive health means physical, emotional, mental, and social well-being in relation to all aspects of sexuality and reproduction.
That's it. Therefore, the best way to understand the relationship between bodily autonomy and bodily integrity is by simply remembering that, as with the right to health, the right to sexual and reproductive health entails both freedoms and entitlements. The freedoms include the right of individuals to make free and responsible decisions and choices concerning their bodies and their sexual and reproductive health.
This has been super informative, Tatenda. I read on the internet that the achievement of sexual and reproductive health relies on the realization of sexual and reproductive rights, which are based on the human rights of all individuals. Is that true?
Yes, that is true. Both autonomy and bodily integrity allow us to understand that issues concerning our bodies are connected, and therefore allows us to understand it from a political, legal, and social perspective. It also gives us a perspective in understanding the power dynamics around our bodies, especially gender equality. Achievement of sexual and reproductive health relies on the realization of sexual and reproductive rights, which are based on the human rights of all individuals to have their bodily integrity, privacy, and personal autonomy respected, freely define their own sexuality, including sexual orientation and gender identity and expression, decide whether and when to be sexually active, choose their sexual partners, have safe and pleasurable sexual experiences, decide whether, when, and whom to marry, decide whether, when, and by what means to have a child or children, and how many children to have access over their lifetimes to the information, resources, services, and support necessary to achieve all of the above, free from discrimination, coercion, exploitation, and violence.
Thank you so much for sharing this information with me. It was helpful. Where can I get more resources to share with community organizations that want to understand bodily autonomy, bodily integrity, and SRHR more?
You can visit the ARASA website, where they have a list of useful resources and links. This message was brought to you by the AIDS and Rights Alliance of Southern Africa. For more information, visit www.arasa.info.
Oh yes, of course, it is, hashtag Talk Thursday here on Cape Town TV, and we are talking about everything that has to do with bodily autonomy and, of course, integrity. Earlier on the show, Ulama sat down with Soraya, and they broke down what ARASA is about and what it does. So now I want us to just get into understanding what is bodily autonomy and integrity, and we are joined by HE-Jin, and HE-Jin is going to be telling us about what bodily autonomy is, what does it mean for us, and actually on a day-to-day basis, what does it actually mean? Because, you know, the term is so broad and there's so many aspects and components that are involved with it, but when you break it down, it all comes down to human rights. So how do we understand that on a day-to-day practical basis?
I think it's important when we talk about these big terms. I think it's important to come down to what everything is about. It's about the fact that no matter who you are in society, you have the right to be who you are, and you have the right to express who you are, and you have the right to make decisions about how you will live your life. And that very much relates to your body. It very much relates to how other people react to your body. I think we live in a society where so many people make judgments, and maybe not consciously, but I think we all have experiences where people say, when are you going to finally have children? Or you shouldn't be wearing a skirt that's so short, or you should not be wearing so much makeup, or you're not wearing enough makeup, or you're too skinny, or you're too thick, or you shouldn't be saying this about yourself, or you shouldn't be expressing yourself and be happy about how you look and how you express your sexuality and how you express how you want to live your life. I think when we talk about human rights, especially in South Africa, and we look at the Constitution, it has all of these legal terms of, it's the right to be free of discrimination, etc. And that's very much true, but fundamentally to that, it's a human right to be yourself. And it's the human right to feel healthy and safe, living the life and relating to your own body the way you feel comfortable. I think that's the key, and all of us can relate to that.
So how can we as citizens actively play a role in ensuring that we are conscientized? Because as you said, that sometimes people might do it unconsciously, not aware that maybe what they might say might offend another person. So how do we then deconstruct what we have been taught and unlearning those things and entering into a space where we are now affording people to be themselves and actually own their body without the fear of discrimination, for example?
I think it's about being reflective of the kind of unintentional judgments we often make. I think there's a lot of stigma and discrimination in society that is very overt. It's very intentional. People sometimes say things that are very problematic, very violent, but there are also smaller things. And I think sometimes we look at politicians to provide us with solutions, or what they're saying, or celebrities or other people. And while it's important that those who have a lot of influence are careful and understand that what they're saying has an effect, on a day-to-day basis, we all interact with each other. Which means is that as I'm sitting here from you, I need to understand is that, as somebody who is not as young, right, it's like my views on gender and sexuality might be different than yours. And that I have the right to feel and act the way I am and to express myself, and so do you. And sometimes unintentionally, we make judgments. We need to realize is that we've been, we grow up in a society that tries to influence how you think, how you react to other people. And, and I think it's important to be reflective of how you're talking about certain things. Are you talking in a way that feels judgmental? And
unfortunately, I have to stop you right there, but HE-Jin is not going anywhere. We continue the conversation after the ad break, so please make sure that you do not go anywhere. We'll see you guys right after this. Our conversation continues.
CTV family.